There are questions that are born only from love and from loss. There are silences that appear only when someone we love is no longer here. Moments when you stare at an old photo and suddenly, without planning to, you whisper, "Mom, Dad, can you still hear me?" Some absences never really go away. Some names are still spoken every day inside the heart. And some nights the soul just needs to talk to those who can no longer answer with words. If you've ever felt that, then stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to hear may completely change the way you understand death, prayer, and the kind of love that never ends. Have you ever asked yourself what truly happens when you pray for your parents who have passed away? Not a rushed prayer, not empty words, but that prayer that comes from the tight chest, from longing, from a love that refuses to die. Many people believe praying for the dead is just symbolic. Others think it does nothing, but spiritual tradition and the voices of deep mystics reveal something very different. Prayer does not die when the body dies. Love is not interrupted by death, and the bond between souls is not broken by the last heartbeat. When you pray for your deceased parents, something happens, something invisible, but deeply real, something that reaches heaven. But before we go further, if this kind of message touches your heart, if you're searching for answers that don't come from the noise of the world, but from the silence of the soul, subscribe to this channel now. Here we talk about faith, consciousness, and the mysteries of the spiritual life. Your subscription helps this message reach others who also need hope. Now, let's go deeper. When you pray for your parents who have passed on, you're not speaking into emptiness. You're speaking from love, and love is a language heaven understands perfectly. Prayer is not just words, it is intention, it is vibration, it is a force that crosses time, space, and even death. When you say, "Lord, take care of my mother," "God, give my father peace," you're not sending a memory. You're sending light, and that light is never wasted. Most people think that after death everything closes, but spiritually the opposite happens. Many things open. Truth opens. Consciousness opens. The encounter with God opens. And there, where the body no longer exists, the soul still receives, it still feels, it is still touched by love. So when you pray for your parents who have died, you are not speaking to the past. You are speaking to the eternal present of the soul. And here is something few people dare to say. A child's prayer has a special power. It's not the same as any other prayer. It's not the same as any other request. It is born from the deepest bond on earth, the bond between parents and children. That bond does not break with death. It transforms. And when you pray for them, something moves in the spiritual world. Mercy moves, healing moves, consolation moves. Many sons and daughters carry silent guilt. I should have spent more time with them. I didn't say I love you enough. We argued the last time I saw them. And prayer becomes a bridge between what was never said and what can still be offered. When you pray for your deceased parents, you're not only helping them, you are also healing parts of yourself. You heal memories, you heal wounds, you heal the way you relate to love, loss, and God. Prayer is not only for heaven, it is also for the heart. But now I want to take you even deeper, because there is something almost no one understands. When you pray for your deceased parents, you are not just asking for their rest, you are cooperating with divine mercy, and that has eternal consequences. In the next block, we will enter the heart of this message, what the soul experiences after death, how the prayer of children impacts the spiritual world, and why Saint Teresa warned about the power of praying for the dead. Let me speak to you slowly now, not as someone teaching, but as someone walking beside you, because when we talk about praying for deceased parents, we are touching one of the most sacred pains a human being can feel, Losing a parent is not like losing anything else. It's not just grief, it's a kind of spiritual orphanhood. Even when you're an adult, even when you're strong, a part of you still wants to hear their voice, still wants their advice, still wants their blessing. And when they're gone, you don't stop being their child. You just become a child who loves from the other side of the veil. That's why prayer becomes so important, because prayer is where love goes when it no longer has hands to touch. When you pray for your parents who have died, you are not doing something small. You are doing something eternal. You are speaking into a realm where time doesn't work the way it does here, where seconds don't pass, where love doesn't decay, where truth is no longer hidden. In that realm, the soul becomes fully awake. And when a soul becomes fully awake, it also becomes fully sensitive to love. That means something very real. Your prayer reaches them, not as sound waves, not as imagination, but as spiritual presence. Your love becomes light. Your words become comfort. Your memory becomes mercy. Many people ask, but how can someone who is dead receive anything? Because death is not annihilation. It's transition. The body stops, but the soul continues. And the soul carries everything it lived, everything it loved, everything it failed to heal. That's where your prayer enters. Some souls arrive in eternity carrying peace. Others arrive carrying wounds, wounds of regret, wounds of unfinished love, wounds of things never forgiven. And when you pray for them, you are not changing their past. You are changing their eternity. Your prayer does something very specific. It opens a channel of mercy. Mercy is not just forgiveness. Mercy is healing. When you pray, Lord, have mercy on my mother. God, receive my father with love. You are asking heaven to touch what earth could not fix, and heaven responds to love. Not to perfection, not to religious performance, but to love. Your broken prayer, your crying prayer, your confused prayer is more powerful than you think, because God does not measure words. He measures the heart behind them. Some people feel ashamed to pray for their parents. They think they're already dead. What's the point? But here is the truth. Prayer for the dead is one of the most selfless acts of love. You're not praying to get something. You're praying to give something. You're offering light to someone who can no longer ask for it. And that is deeply sacred. Let me say something that may touch you deeply. When you pray for your deceased parents, they are not indifferent to it. They are not unaware. They feel it, not as emotion like we do, but as peace, as relief, as a softening of whatever was heavy in their soul. Some mystics describe it like this. Your prayer is like water on a dry soul, not dramatic, not explosive, but quiet, gentle, transforming, and sometimes it's exactly what that soul was waiting for. There are parents who left this world with regrets, with fear, with guilt, and there are children who stayed behind with questions, with pain, with words never spoken. Prayer becomes the meeting point, not to reopen wounds, but to heal them. You may not realize this, but when you pray for your parents, you also forgive them. Even if you don't say the word forgive, even if you don't fully understand what you're doing, by placing them in God's hands, you release them from your judgment, and you release yourself from your anger. And that is spiritual freedom. Now listen to this carefully. Many people think heaven is only about the person who died, but heaven is also about the people who stayed. When you pray for your parents, you're not only helping them reach peace, you're helping your own soul to rest, because grief is not just sadness. Grief is love with nowhere to go. Prayer gives your love a destination. Instead of staying trapped in your chest, your love rises. It goes upward, it goes forward, it goes eternal, and something inside you becomes lighter. You don't forget them, you don't stop missing them, but you stop carrying them as pain and start carrying them as prayer. And that changes everything. There is a mystery here that is hard to explain with logic. When you pray for your parents, You are closer to them than when you only remember them. Memory stays in the past. Prayer moves into the eternal now. That's why sometimes after praying you feel strangely calm. You still miss them, but the ache is softer. That's the soul responding, your soul and theirs. Because love never loses its direction. It just changes its form. And prayer is love's new language. In the next block, we will go even deeper into the warning about not neglecting this kind of prayer. What happens when children stop praying for their dead, and why this message is not about fear, but about responsibility and mercy. Now let me speak to you about something serious, not to scare you, but to awaken you. Because there is a kind of silence that hurts more than words, and that is the silence of forgotten prayers. Many souls leave this world and wait, not for judgment, not for punishment, but for remembrance. They wait for someone on earth to still care enough to speak their name before God. And this is where the warning comes in, not as a threat, but as a responsibility. When children stop praying for their deceased parents, something very subtle happens. Not outside, inside, the bond weakens. Not because love disappears, but because love stops being expressed. And love that is not expressed slowly turns into memory, and memory slowly turns into distance. But heaven does not want distance between souls. Heaven wants communion. That's why prayer matters so much, not because God needs to be reminded, but because we do. We are the ones who forget. We are the ones who get busy. We are the ones who move on. And sometimes we move on too fast. We live in a world that teaches, don't look back, don't feel too much. Just keep going. But the soul doesn't work like that. The soul needs closure. The soul needs meaning. The soul needs connection. And prayer is how the soul keeps the connection alive. Here is the warning in simple words. Do not let your parents become only a memory. Let them remain a presence in prayer, not because they are trapped somewhere, but because love still flows. There are parents who raise their children with sacrifice, with long nights, with tired bodies, with worried hearts, and then one day they leave, and the world keeps spinning. But heaven notices something. Who still remembers them? Not on anniversaries, not only on holidays, but in the quiet of the night, in the honesty of prayer. Who still says, God, take care of them, because that sentence still changes things, not dramatically, not loudly, but eternally. When a soul is remembered in prayer, it is strengthened. When a soul is loved from earth, it is supported. And when a soul is entrusted to God, it is surrounded by mercy. But when no one prays anymore, the soul is not abandoned by God. Never. But something human is missing. The echo of love. And heaven listens to that echo. This is why neglecting this prayer is not a small thing, not because God punishes, but because love is meant to circulate, from God to us and through us to others, including those who are no longer here. Let me tell you something very honest. Your parents do not need your perfection. They do not need your success. They do not need your achievements. They need your love in prayer. They need to be placed in God's hands. Not because they are lost, but because love wants to give, even after death. And now I want to speak to you personally. If your parents are still alive, pray for them. Not tomorrow, not someday, now. And if they are already gone, don't stop, even if years have passed, even if you think it's too late. It is never too late to love, and prayer is love's final form on earth. Before we finish, I want you to do something simple. Tonight or tomorrow morning, say their names out loud and say, God, I give you my mother. God, I give you my father. Take care of them better than I ever could. And then be quiet, not to hear a voice, but to feel peace, because when you pray for your parents, you're not speaking into emptiness, you're speaking into eternity, and eternity listens. If this message touched your heart, if it awakened something inside you, Subscribe to this channel now. Here we talk about faith, soul, and the mysteries that really matter. Your subscription helps this message reach more hearts that are still searching for meaning, comfort, and truth. Thank you for staying until the end, and may your prayer become light.